C is now called to order. Will the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Neely,
Here.
Representatives Farhat. Here. Rixey. Here. Carter. Here. Witset. Here. Grant. Price.
Here.
Van Workum. Here. Markkinen. Outman. Tisdale. Here. Hoadley. Here. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Vice Chair Minority Van Welcome makes a motion to adopt minutes from the September 27, 2023 meeting. Without any objections, the minutes are adopted. Today on the agenda, we'll be having testimony on House Bill 4905 and 4906. We ask Rep. Farhat and Rep. Andrews to come up. And I just wanted to let everyone know we're going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes to speak. We are going to stop very quick and hard at 12:20.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We'll do our best to keep it brief, respectful of the time. We're here in support of our bills today because we believe these represent an enormous economic development opportunity for our state. Data centers are becoming more and more in demand for the modern world. All of our technology runs through the internet, through the cloud, requires more and more data capacity. And as a result, companies are looking to site data centers in more and diverse places all across the country. Recently in the Midwest, many of our neighbors have passed similar exemptions to the ones that we're looking at today and have become prime locations for some of these data centers. We've seen transformations in Ohio, Wisconsin, and Illinois for communities that have maybe been looking for what's next for them. I see this personally as a big opportunity for many of our communities that, maybe lost most of their manufacturing during the recession, have brownfields and land that, frankly, probably doesn't have many other purposes to it now that the manufacturing is gone. And these data centers represent a potential new lease on life for many of our communities. They don't require large amounts of infrastructure. They don't require large population centers. And as such, can represent new lease on life for many of our smaller towns and communities that are, as we're trying to figure out how we draw more people to the state or trying to figure out what's next for them. So I'm very excited to be a sponsor on this package, and I'll turn it over to Rep. Farhat to.
Thank you, Representative Andrews and my colleagues here on tax policy. This legislation presents a really unique opportunity for Michigan to build out a 21st century digital infrastructure capacity. We're looking now as we see more jobs coming to our state, and we're looking as we look to diversify our market share of jobs. These data centers present a unique opportunity for us to land really hefty investments that are going to contribute to property tax growth, that are going to contribute to new construction jobs that will have to build out these facilities. And more than just that, these data centers are going to help with making sure that our state is a place that different industries look for when they're looking to locate. What does that mean? That means Google, Facebook, these major companies will be looking at our state as a place to open a data center in. They'll be looking at a place to invest billions of dollars. Our state to the south of us, Ohio, recently landed a development for data centers nearing, I want to say it was in the double digits for $10 billion around. That's a record investment. That's a huge investment that states like ours, Michigan, are missing out on because we don't currently have a sales and use tax exemption for data centers. I'm looking forward to exploring this conversation deeper with my colleagues, and we have a really, I think, a really interesting lineup of folks to testify today on the value and the merit of adopting this exemption.
All right. Thank you. And for the sake of time, we're going to have everyone come up and testify, and then we'll have all our questions at the end. All right. So thank you, guys. I appreciate you for testifying today. Now we will have Barbara Kronstadt to come up, also Rob Cleveland, and Don Shoemaker and Todd Bateman, who's on Zoom. And welcome to Tax Policy, and you guys can get started when you're ready. Can you speak into that, and hit the red button for me? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chair Neely and members of the committee, my name is Barbara Comstock, and I'm representing NetChoice, a trade association of American online businesses. We are leaders in tech policy in the states, in Washington, D.C., in the courts, and in international internet governance organizations. I served in the Virginia General Assembly, and in 2012, I sponsored and passed legislation to update the sales tax code for data centers. And my legislation had bipartisan support, both from a Democrat governor and then subsequently from Republican governor, then a Democrat governor, Bob McDonnell, then Terry McAuliffe. And now Virginia is the top #1 place for data centers in the world. And so that's why we're asking for your support for 4905 and 4906, so Michigan can similarly invest and get this large-scale capital investments. The tech industry facilities and data centers are the #1 in terms of capital investments. Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, and Microsoft invested $94 billion in 2022, but only in states where they have these tax incentives. So as you can see in slide 3, I believe in the handout that we handed out, they do make these kind of investments. Like in Ohio, it was $1.5 billion just for one data center, and you can see the kind of money, how that spreads out. We had Mangum Economics do a study for Michigan, so you can see how this would, when it's all spent out and the ripple effects. A 2020 report showed it would be $313 million in pay and benefits for 4,200 construction jobs, 630 full-time operation jobs, earning $47 million in pay and benefits, generating $26 million in additional annual economic output for Michigan just from one data center. So we ask you to look at sort of a here versus not here analysis when you look at it, so that these sales tax exemptions, which you already have for things like manufacturing, farming, and mining production equipment, you apply it to data centers, because then the incremental benefits that you get will be things like income and spending by construction workers and contractors, income and spending by the data center employees, local suppliers, contracts, things like that, and then the incremental tax revenue, personal income taxes, corporate income taxes, sales taxes on services, and so on. And just to give you an idea of when Virginia looked at this, and I had to fight them, they thought they would lose money when they did this, but when they went ahead and did it, Virginia benefited in its tax base. On page 6 of our handout, a study showed from a 2019 report that 90% of the investment would not have occurred but for the tax exemptions. And over a 10-year period, it showed that Virginia recovered 75 cents in tax revenue for every dollar sales tax that was exempted. Now today, the landscape to attract data centers is much different from 10 years ago, because then there were only 5 states. So you can see in this map, putting Michigan on the map, 10 years ago it was only 5, 6 states. Now it's over 30 that have the exemptions. And you are surrounded by states that have the exemptions. And just while Michigan has been looking at this legislation, you've had states surrounding you, such as Illinois, that enacted a bill in 2019, and they've seen $4.2 billion in investment, and then $4.3 billion in announced investments. And then Ohio updated its program in 2019 and has had investment from Amazon, Google, and Meta. And Google announced 2 more centers recently, with their total investment just from Google being over $2 billion. And then this July, Wisconsin also passed incentives. So we certainly would love to have Michigan put on that map. So thank you.
Hi, my name's Don Shoemaker. I'm with Franklin Partners, and I'd like to thank Chair Neely for sponsoring this, and for Reps Andrews and Farhat for sponsoring this bill. We're in the commercial real estate business. We've purchased over 5 million feet of empty buildings in my career around Michigan and brought them back to life. Without a lot of empty buildings, we went and purchased a lot of land. We've got almost 1,000 acres of land zoned for industrial. We had an old former GM plant in Sandusky, Ohio, that we were tearing down, and a lot of power to it. And all of a sudden, we entered the data center world because a large data center developer came along and they wanted our 80 megawatts of power. They testified in front of the US EPA they're going to invest $6 billion in this 125-acre site. One site in Ohio. Our sites in Michigan, after that happened, I called consumers, DTE, AEP, said, how much power do we have? We have a lot of power. It's really reliable. But if this bill passes, it will come. It'll come in a big way, and I think it'll come fast. It's really exciting opportunity, I think, for the state. And I think you did a really great job, so I'm going to end it there.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Rob Cleveland. I'm the president and CEO of Cornerstone Alliance. Cornerstone Alliance is based in Benton Harbor and is the lead economic development organization in Southwest Michigan. As all of you know, this is one piece of legislation, economic development legislation, currently circulating in Lansing. And economic development legislation is usually one piece of a complex system that companies use in order to define competitiveness and look to locate new jobs. However, the bill in front of you is very different than most other economic development legislation. This legislation is not a piece of the puzzle, it is the entire thing. Passing this single piece of legislation changes everything for the state of Michigan and our ability to recruit data centers. We immediately become a top location for data center attraction. Now is precisely the right time to be competitive in this market, and it has a lot to do, especially in our area, with the fact that the Cook Nuclear Plant supplies clean, zero-emission, renewable energy, the kind of energy that these companies are looking for. So, again, this changes everything. One piece of legislation changes everything, makes us immediately competitive, and we're thrilled to death to be working with these folks to bring new high-paying, high-skilled jobs to Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have Tom Bateman on Zoom? Okay. We do have questions. Rep. Tisdale?
Thank you, Chair Neely. Real quickly, so we have this exemption in place right now, and you're looking to extend it by 15 years, but the sunset is 12 years out. How much electricity do these data centers draw?
Representative Tisdale, I could be incorrect, but I believe the current exemption on the books is for co-location data centers. This is for single company use data centers, so it would expand our ability.
It is not lengthening the sunset?
Yes, it does lengthen the sunset, but Michigan is unique and it's the only state that has it for co-location. So
very
these
good.
enterprise
So how much
data
electricity do these data centers draw?
A lot.
A lot.
And that Michigan has a lot of available power and a lot of reliable available power with consumers DTE.
We're all pleased to hear that.
Well, they do, and that's how.
Michigan's electricity is 13% higher than the local Great Lakes states and 16% higher than the national average. We could be as much as 30% higher as Ohio. So you're suggesting that this offset in 6% on equipment is going to help with the uncompetitive electricity rates?
Absolutely understand your question, and I would agree with you that there are.
Right, thank you.
That there are some challenges, but I will say, so one of the things that makes us competitive are cooling days, free cooling days. So the fact that we are a cool climate is also one of the things that helps offset the high power cost.
And makes it difficult to recruit employees.
Okay, thank you. Rep. Outman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for being here. Thank you to Rep. Andrews and Farhat for bringing this legislation forward. Just a couple of quick questions. Number one, I'm always looking to diversify Michigan's economy. We're so tied to the auto industry. If we could get other sectors of the economy involved in Michigan business, I'm always open to those options. Without this tax credit, is it your belief that Michigan is completely out of the running for these data centers?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
My second question is, what are the types of materials that are needed for these data centers that, would qualify for the exemption? I just picture a bunch of wires and like circuit boards and things like that. Keep in mind, I'm just an ignorant farmer that has no knowledge of technology for the most part. But just give me a brief description of what sort of materials are needed for these data centers.
Well, the major thing that we're exempting, the servers that are in the data centers, and we have a website on netchoice.org that we've dedicated to just Michigan to show you the data centers and what they involve, and the report that I mentioned, so you can see the actual data centers and what's involved there. But the servers are largely what's on there, and that's what's going to be largely exempted. And every 3 to 5 years, we replace the servers. So that's the main, equipment that is in there. But you have high-skilled electricians and computer people who are there, and you also have high-skilled union work that is used here. So you have a situation where the people who work on the data centers to put them together use a lot of different.
That actually brings up a different question, but
we're gonna have to just wind up with your questions. Maybe you can speak with the sponsors of the bill or them after committee. We are on a short time span here.
We'd be happy to get that information.
And so real quickly, Minority Chair Van Wemker, if you can make it quickly.
Oh, I will try, Madam Chair, but I appreciate that. My question may be more for the bill sponsors, and I'll try and compress this into actually two. It was testified that this won't require much infrastructure, but as Representative Tisdale said, there's a lot of energy. So I'm trying to understand this carve-out that is put in there specifically for former power plants. And the irony that we have, it's like two committees aren't talking to each other. On one side, we got a committee that's trying to do carbon neutral, and it's going to cost a lot of these plants will go out of business. I have a plant in my district that is being shut down, and yet we are trying to generate, or these data centers are going to need a lot of energy to survive. So I see that there's a carve out here specifically for former power plant sites that get an extra 15 years. My question is there a specific site that is in mind here for this? And then also there's a provision that they need to go through the strategic fund to get their credential rather than Treasury. What is the purpose of having go through the strategic fund? Do we do that in any other way, or is this going to be unique to this bill compared to why isn't Treasury the one that's determining whether this is a data center?
So first of all, so you had two questions, right? One was there's a carve out for former power generation centers. I think that carve out is mostly intended because of the existing infrastructure that is there. They're already plugged into the grid. They can adopt up the energy more quickly. And the second thing, so there's no specific site that I have in mind or that we have in mind, but to your second point, which was the carve out, I think it's to remain consistent with, I believe that's how it's done for the co-located servers is through this process, and so we just want to be consistent in how we do it. Happy to share more after if you want.
Thank you. Rep. Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. I'm going to be brief. Have any sites in Michigan been identified for possible data centers? If so, can you share that?
Well, that's how we got involved in this. Is we owned land in Kalamazoo, in Rob's Market, in the Benton Harbor Market, and in the Grand Rapids Market. And we contacted utilities to get load studies done and how much power they have available. So we're very interested. We're also looking to attract manufacturers there. That's what our business is. But this is a unique opportunity, and it's a window. This window may be gone. It may not be here next year. My kids say, talk about AI, Dad. Don't talk about ChatGPT, it's AI. But there's a unique window here to capture this opportunity for Michigan. It's happened in all the states around there, and it's happening fast.
Thank you. Rep. Ritchie, and this will be our last question.
Thank you. So it sounds like these places would have lots of employees on site. Is that correct?
No, the data centers themselves, when they're finished, the employees at the data center usually are only about 100 to 120, maybe 150 employees, but it's the building of them. There's lots of construction workers and other employees, and then it's the add-on employees from the whole ecosystem afterwards. It can be anywhere from 3 to 4 more employees.
Okay,
from
but
the
but
data
100
centers.
to 150 employees, and with the high value of the equipment and the electrical equipment, those to me indicate a need for a local community that has adequate emergency medical services and fire services to support that type of use. And I have concerns about the sales tax exemption because that impacts our local communities.
Yeah, they pay property tax in their local communities. And obviously when they look to cite that, they look for that type of support, but they also pay for security. They get security systems, security people, and other people because they aren't.
Sales tax also goes to local communities for revenue sharing.
I would say, Representative Brixey, I just think it's important to point out the project we're working on in Benton Charter Township will have a taxable value more than the taxable value of the entire community as it sits today. So understand the sales tax exemption from a broader perspective. The Benton Township millage is in the 60 to 65 range. We have an opportunity to bring a project in that has a taxable value more than the entire community itself. So understand the offset, but we know that the tax revenue that'll be generated from the project will offset any loss.
Thank you. We do have a lot of cards to read and support, but we'll make sure we get them logged in so you can go online to see who all was in support. Right now, Representative Price makes a motion to excuse excuse absent members without any objection. They all are excused. And seeing there's no more further business before the committee, this committee is adjourned.